Welcome to Nutrigenomics 101. This presentation is brought to you by senior dietetics students from Michigan State University. Your physician requested you receive information regarding nutrigenomics due to your past medical history. So, let's get started with some background information. The first thing you need to know is what nutrigenetics is. Nutrigenetics is the study of the relationships among genes, diet, and health outcomes. Another important term to know is nutrigenomics. Nutrigenomics is a related but distinct field. It is the study of how genes and nutrients interact at the molecular level. So you're probably wondering, why do these things matter? Well, today physicians make health recommendations based on population-based dietary recommendations. One example of this is the MyPlate recommendations, or you may be familiar with the older version, the food pyramid. Are these recommendations helpful? Yes, but they are not right for all individuals. This is because people respond differently to different diets. Think about it. Haven't you ever wondered why individuals experience different health outcomes even though they eat similar diets and practice comparable lifestyles? This thought has led to the idea of personalized nutrition. It is thought to be the future of the nutrition field. It will base everyone's nutritional needs on their predispositions to disease. Now you're probably wondering, how can we do this? Well, patients can be genotyped for specific genetic mutations. This will inform patients of their risk of certain diseases and nutrient deficiencies. Based on the results they receive, patients will work with a dietitian to come up with a diet that is specific for them. So, in order to do this, we will look at your DNA. We are able to do this because of the Human Genome Project. The Human Genome Project was the world's largest collaborative biological project and one of the greatest research projects ever done because it identified all the genes in human DNA and determined the sequences of 3 billion chemical base pairs that make up human DNA. This allows us to examine the relationship among an individual's genetic makeup, dietary intake, and health outcomes. In order to explain this further, you will need to know some background information on DNA. The image below is of the structure of DNA. We call this shape a double helix. DNA is a molecule in the body that gives instructions for the functions of cells. Everyone's DNA is completely unique to themselves, and the pattern or makeup of your DNA determines its functions. Another important term to remember is genome. Your genome is your set of chromosomes that is made up of your DNA. Knowing all of this information allows us to determine your nutrition genome. Your nutrition genome is based on the fact that nutrition can affect the expression of genes in critical metabolic pathways. It can also cause alterations in gene dosage and gene mutation. So again, what does all of this mean? It means that your health depends on your DNA. Looking at this image below, it displays that the food that you may consume in a typical day can affect your health based on your DNA. This is because the health effects of nutrients depends on genetic makeup. The way your body absorbs certain nutrients may differ from someone else's. For example, the vitamin C from a tomato or the potassium from a banana may be better absorbed by your body than someone else's, and vice versa. So, it's important to remember what your genetic sequence can affect. It can affect your nutrient requirements, your energy utilization, your appetite and taste, and your risk of chronic disease in response to diet. As we mentioned earlier, knowing this information has led to the area of personalized nutrition. This is where we will be able to customize nutritional requirements by taking into consideration an individual's inherited and acquired genetic characteristics depending on life stage, dietary preferences, and health status. This will overall lead to better health outcomes. So, The main point to take away is that patients can be genotyped for specific genetic variations. They can then be made aware of their chronic disease risk and nutrient deficiencies and given strategies to dramatically reduce their risk. We are able to do this through the study of epigenetics. What is epigenetics? It is the study of how genes are turned on or off. This is what makes each of us unique. It is important to remember that turning genes on or off does not change our DNA pattern, but it changes gene expression. There are also 3 important things to know about epigenetics and the turning off and on of genes. Number 1, genes can be turned on or off before we are born or during our lifetime. Number 2, epigenetics can be influenced by things such as our environment, family history, food consumption, and sleep patterns. Number 3, the variations in which genes are turned on or off can affect who we are, what we look like, and most importantly, our health. Another important aspect of epigenetics are single nucleotide polymorphisms, more commonly called SNPs. A SNP is a difference in a single DNA building block called a nucleotide. A SNP is also the most common type of genetic variation. There are roughly 10 million SNPs in the human genome. Among those 10 million, there are some that will influence nutritional status. So, what is the importance of SNPs? Well, they can help predict an individual's susceptibility to developing certain diseases. They do this by acting as biological markers to help scientists locate genes that are associated with disease. So, you're probably wondering, why does all this matter to you? Well, you just had a myocardial infarction, also known as a heart attack. All of this nutrigenomics and epigenetics information can potentially help you beat cardiovascular disease. We know that there may be genetic predispositions to cardiovascular disease. In fact, there are many SNPs associated with increased risk of heart disease. There is one chromosome region proven more important that we would like to look at. The highest association to heart disease have been SNPs in the chromosome 9p21 region. This pertains to you because this region is specifically associated with heart attacks. In fact, there are 4 SNPs in the 9p21 chromosome region that increase the risk of myocardial infarction by about 20%. While this may sound scary, the risk of heart attack and cardiovascular disease displayed by chromosome 9p21 SNPs appear to be modified by a prudent diet high in raw vegetables and fruits. We know this because a study was done on those genetically predisposed to myocardial infarction. In the study, those who were genetically predisposed to myocardial infarction didn't have an increased incidence of myocardial infarction if they consumed a diet high in raw vegetables and fruits. On the other hand, those who were genetically predisposed and did not consume many raw vegetables and fruits had the greatest incidence of myocardial infarction. What we want you to take away from this information is that following a certain dietary pattern may prevent a future heart attack, even for a person who's genetically predisposed. We know this was a lot of information for you to take in, and you're probably wondering what this all means for you. Well, it means that we can genotype you and determine your predisposition to cardiovascular disease. Then we may be able to alter your dietary requirements to prevent you from having another myocardial infarction. If this interests you, please talk to your doctor about working with a dietitian. That way, you will be able to have your nutrition genome mapped. If you're interested in more information, please feel free to visit our references.